8.4, we're going to discuss matrices and systems of equations. Today we're going to do some of the basic things with matrices. Tomorrow we will start solving some matrices and doing some other things. And we'll eventually be putting them into our graphing calculators so that we can use matrices that way.
I remember, it's like the only thing I remember from last year is matrices.
It's matrices. Okay, good. So a matrix, remember, is measured by rows by columns. So it's how many are in a row by how many columns there are. Rows by columns. Okay? So if I want to determine the dimensions of these three matrices, what would this first one be? It'd be a what? 2 by 2. That's an easy one. We also call this a square matrice. Anything that is the same, 2 by 2, 3 by 3, 4 by 4, things like that, 1 by 1, those are square matrices. Okay? What is this matrix right here?
3 by 1.
It's rows by column. Yeah, rows by columns. What did you say it was? 3 by 1. Rows by columns, yes. 3 by 1. Okay, 3 by 1. Rows by columns. And what about this one? 3 by 2. I have 3 rows, 2 columns. Okay, rows by columns. That's probably the most common thing that we forget is the rows by columns. I like to switch it sometimes in my head, so don't get confused by that. When you see equations that say x minus 4y plus 3z equals 5, negative x plus 3y minus z equals negative 3, and 2x minus 4z equals 6, those are a system of equations. We've practiced solving systems of equations using substitution and elimination. We can also use matrices to solve these, okay? And matrices will make it quicker sometimes when we solve. I can take a system of equations and I can turn it into an augmented matrix, okay? An augmented matrix means that I'm taking all the leading coefficients of these, which is 1, negative 4, 3, 1, negative 4, 3, and then I put this colon here. Is that a colon? Yeah. And then 5, okay, my answer. So it's all the leading coefficients, then your answer. Leading coefficients, then your answer. So an augmented matrix, we will practice just changing things into augmented matrices today. And then eventually, later on in this lesson, we will practice taking augmented matrices and changing them around or putting them in our graphing calculator so that we can solve some things. Okay? Another way to write a system is with just a coefficient matrix. Okay? It's where I leave my answers off. So augmented matrix has my answers in its coefficient is just the leading coefficients. So I have 1, negative 4, 3, negative 1, 3, negative 1, 2, 0, negative 4. If there's nothing there, I have to put a placeholder of 0. Okay? So on your homework today, they're going to give you a system. They're going to ask you to make an augmented matrix out of it. They're going to ask you to make a coefficient matrix out of it. Those shouldn't be too bad. You should be able to handle that. Okay. I might add one more thing to this board too in a little bit, but I ran out of space clearly. Okay, elementary row operations. In a matrix terminology, these 3 operations correspond to elementary row matrices or operations. There are 3 things that correspond to it. Interchanging 2 rows, multiplying one of the rows by a non-zero, and adding a multiple of one row to another. Those all 3 things consist as elementary row operations, okay? So you're going to be asked to look at matrices and do one of the following things. Interchange 2 rows, multiply one of the rows by a non-zero, or add a multiple of one row to another. Although elementary row operations are simple to perform, they involve a lot of arithmetic. Because it is easy to make a mistake, you should get in the habit of noting the elementary row operations performed in each step so that you can go back and check your work, okay? So we're going to start with an original. I am going to erase these in a minute so that we can do ones that have 2 or 3 things together, okay? So if this is my original matrix, 0, 1, 3, 4, negative 1, 2, 0, 3, 2, negative 3, 4, 1, and I want to just interchange, let's say I want to interchange row 1 and row 2. How would I rewrite that?
Well, you see, what are you going to do?
I want to interchange row 1 and row 2.
Yeah,
I didn't say add, I said interchange. What's interchange? Switch them, yeah. So how do I rewrite it?
So would it one view would be negative one.
Yep.
two, oh, three,
Negative 1, 2, 0, 3, what's the
and
second row?
0, 1, 3, 4.
Yep, and then the third row.
2, negative 3, 4, 1.
Okay, so if I'm simply interchanging rows 1 and 2, that's what my new matrix looks like.
That's it.
That's it.
Can that be like a whole quiz? Interchange.
If I have my original matrix, 2, negative 4, 6, negative 2, 1, 3, negative 3, 0, 5, negative 2, 1, 2. I know, it's hard to read. Let's say I want to multiply, this says multiply the first row by 1/2. How do I write my new matrix?
Well, you multiply the first row by 1/2.
Okay, so what's 2 times 1/2?
Great question.
What's 2 times 1/2? That should be an easy one.
3.
Not 3.
See then, you're freaking ruining
What's 2 times 1/2? 1/2 times 2.
it. 2.5.
Stop. If I have 1/2 times 2, 2 is over 1. You multiply straight across. What's 2 over 2? 1.
I was
1/2.
gonna say that.
1/2 times 2 is 1. What's negative 4 times 1/2?
2. Negative 2.
Negative 2. What's 6 times 1/2?
3.
And what's negative 2 times 1/2?
Negative 1.
Negative 1. And since it only told me to multiply the first row, I just simply copy the next 2 rows down. Okay? Now, if it says add, okay, this one has a little bit more complicated steps to it. It says your original is 1, 2, negative 4, 3, 0, 3, negative 2, negative 1, 2, 1, 5, negative 2. Add negative 2 times the first row to the third row. Okay, so the way they're going to show it to you in your book is they're going to write it like this on the outside. Negative 2 row 1 plus row 3.
Okay, so what's you have to add negative 2 to.
Not add. I have to add negative 2 times the first row to the third row. So I'm taking the first row, I'm multiplying it by negative 2, and then I'm adding those answers to the third row. Okay, so my first step is that I need to come up here and I need to multiply all these by negative 2. What's 1 times negative 2? Negative 2. What's 2 times negative 2? And what's negative 4 times negative 2? 8. And what's negative 2 times 3? And I'm taking this new thing that I just came up with and I'm adding it to this whole row. So my first row and my second row don't change because it didn't tell me to do anything to the first and second row. It just told me to do something to the third row. It said, so it would be 0, negative 3, because negative 4 and 1 is negative 3. 8 and 5 is 13, and negative 6 and negative 2 is. So this is my new matrix, okay? So we had to do something to one row and then apply that to a second row, okay? Sometimes we're going to combine all 3 of these steps. Sometimes we're going to combine 2. Sometimes we're doing different things to each row,
See, this is good.
okay? So these are the things that you need to pay attention to. So that's what we're looking to do right there, that type of stuff on this homework section. I think that's where we're going to stop today,
Yes.
and then tomorrow we'll have more to go off of, okay?